Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to be going over the recent just random drop of Halo out of the blue, some of the tournaments that have been played in Call of Duty over the last couple days here. Then we're going to talk about another process episode, just like the last one. We got another process one. This one isn't as detailed, only 8 minutes long, but kind of goes into more detail about the OpTic Envy merger. And then we're going to talk more Vanguard and the upcoming CDL season. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as well as drop a follow on the audio platforms and on Twitter. The support on the last podcast was just insane. It was one of our best performing podcasts, both on the audio platforms and on YouTube. Tons of new subs, tons of new interaction on the video, a bunch of likes, like one of our highest like totals. So I really appreciate the support. Kyle and I both appreciate it. It's awesome to see that when we put hard work into preparation of a podcast and recording, that it doesn't go unnoticed and people are enjoying what we're putting out. So we really appreciate that one and look forward to getting into this one. But before we do, Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm starting to get that feeling that the content is writing itself. We're kind of in a rhythm now with getting pods recorded on I think on Mondays, at least at the moment, and getting them up, and really excited to see how the last one performed. And I think, like I said, I think it was one of our better. Obviously because of the process and everything, the content was just abounding. But just excited to get into everything today.
Yeah, I feel like you said, content is starting to write itself. We're not having to brainstorm and message each other all week to come up with an idea to fill a podcast. It's more like, instead of trying to come up with ideas to fill podcasts, we're actually just like, hey, here's all this stuff. What stuff should we cut? Because we have so much stuff to actually talk about now, which is the best place to be. You can really talk about kind of the best topics. But today, like we said, a lot of Halo news. I know this isn't maybe as much of a Halo crowd on this podcast. Obviously, you guys that are listening are CDL fans who love Call of Duty. But we got to touch a little bit on Halo because some of the things we're not going to like go into detail about like the game Halo because that might not be what you guys are interested in. But we're going to kind of compare and contrast a little bit to Call of Duty, maybe some of the glaring issues with what Halo has that we don't have off their really like their beta launch. But I think that's what we're going to start today with the news. Halo Infinite was released today. I believe it was like more of like a multiplayer beta, they're calling it, because the game was supposed to release on like December 7th. I don't think it's going to have campaign off launch, just multiplayer. And then they basically just like dropped it, I think, at least as a beta or maybe even the full game. I haven't gotten into it yet. I'm probably gonna play after we hit end recording. But the game dropped today. It had team skins for all the teams that are in the HCS, which is the Halo Championship Series, the competitive league. And it has a ranked play on launch with full out like built elo system, I believe, and you can play right now, play your placements. So kind of a slap in the face to us Call of Duty fans that like they say how impossible it is, but Halo just did it, dropped it right in front of us, just randomly out of the blue. So you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing for people that in the Call of Duty scene. The obviously the Call of Duty games only operate on like an 8 or a 9 month lifespan. So every day that goes without competitive modes and elo and skins and stuff is just wasted time and money that they could be getting back in like microtransactions in the stores or even whatever. And yeah, obviously excited for the Halo scene that they get. At least the multiplayer dropped. Early, I guess, from what it was rumored.
Yeah.
I might even go download this thing and just see what it's about.
Oh yeah.
Haven't played Halo since Halo 3. I was kind of a bot at that, so I'm sure I'd really enjoy my time. But yeah, so super excited for that, and hopefully it kind of kicks the COD scene in the butt and gets them working.
Yeah, it really needs to get us in gear. And I thought you brought up a really good point in there that like, I mean, I was thinking it, but I guess I'd honestly just kind of slipped my mind. And it's a fantastic point. You mentioned how Call of Duty, we only have the 1 year life cycle per game, and it takes them months always to get the ranked play in, which you lose so much valuable time in Call of Duty and like the life cycle and how much hype there's in the beginning of the game to get people attached to ranked play, like when there's still like the pubs hype and the new game hype. And Halo, I mean, the last Halo came out in like what 2015 or something, and so they have a long life cycle. Like they could wait the months that we wait to really get a ranked play out, but you know what? Nope, they drop it right off launch. They're like, here's our ranked play, boom. So it's like it's almost just it doesn't make any sense. Like they have the long life cycle. They can afford to wait the couple months, and we don't have that. We have the 12-month life cycle, but really for competitive, it's only more like a 10-month life cycle because the season ends in August, and then from there on, nobody really plays as much competitive after champs because most people are kind of burned out at that point of playing this game like hours and hours on end, and it's getting towards the end of the year, nothing to watch anymore for competitive. So yeah, it's unbelievable that a game like that has multiple year life cycles is just dropping ranked off launch, and here we are, and they just tell us it's not possible pretty much every time, and people allow them to say it. They're like, oh yeah, like it takes time to work on it, but like somebody's got to hold this billions and billions and $1 billion revenue company accountable and get us ranked on launch.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait until, maybe around May or June when we start getting the COD 2022 rumors and stuff, and then, that's gonna just write its own content with like, okay, well, what did we miss out in Vanguard, and what do we want to see on launch? And I think it's gonna be the same stuff. It's gonna be, we want team skins,
Hmm.
very early on. We want competitive elo. We don't just want like a CDL playlist like they had back in like Modern Warfare, where you just get to play like the CDL rule set, because I don't know, I think there's so much more room, and like I don't want to earn like gems and stuff with
Oh,
my
for the love of God, no.
placements and stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating. It's like we're beating the same drum over and over again with like, what do we want? And but yeah, so like I said, but happy to see Halo people get, they're off to a fast start.
Yeah, they deserve it after Halo 4 and Halo 5 being kind of duds. They deserve to finally have another decent competitive game. And from what I'm seeing on the timeline, everybody is saying this game is awesome. It's amazing. I played a little bit of like the early access that you could get for being like a Halo insider, and I thought the game was super smooth, even on console, and I thought it was really fun to play. So it seems like people are optimistic. But yeah, I think a common denominator for like the success of the CWL and Call of Duty is Adam Apicella Esports Engine. They're like the league and like the company in charge of like the events and everything for Halo Esports, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they're the ones kind of behind the minds of the esport and the esports league for Halo. And it just so happens that they have skins off launch and all this competitive support, and I definitely don't think that's a coincidence that those guys are involved and they've been doing everything right. So I think that's pretty much all we had to talk about Halo. Just wanted to recognize the fact that they're doing everything that we wish Call of Duty was doing, and kind of want to talk about that if you don't have anything else.
No, let's keep moving here.
All right. The 70K Boom TV Spin the Wheel tournament. The variant tournament happened this past weekend. And Hitch and TST kind of were like the creators that helped get that one going. And they had, so the Spin the Wheel tournament, if you didn't see it, was basically like 2 subs from each team, and then the ARs from each team, or the AR and the Flex, were like basically put on a wheel, and the subs, like they spun the wheel, whatever AR duo they got matched with, they became a team. And the big story of it was that Scump and Shotzi, everybody's saying it's rigged. They got matched up with Clay and Crim. I mean, the content writes itself there. Like, obviously, everybody wanted that. But that tournament happened this past weekend. The MW Faze team, Modern Warfare Faze team, minus Cellium. So that would be Simp, Abezy, Priesta, and Major Maniac. They kind of just dominated the tournament, beat Envoy, Kenny, Cammy, and Insight. Kind of an intriguing team in the grand finals. And like we said, some other notable teams, that Scump, Shotzi, Clay, Crim team, obviously like the ultimate content. They had so many viewers during this tournament. And then Methods, TJ, Paul, and Venom, the rumored potentially 12th team roster, played together. But you got any thoughts on this tournament with the old MW Faze just dominating the competition?
I mean, it looked like they never put the controllers down after Modern Warfare,
Yeah.
I mean, just I don't know. It was just kind of interesting seeing, some kind of like the meme teams and stuff kind of team up and play. I know, like, the pros were still going hard, trying to win, but it was just kind of fun to see the I tuned into a little bit of the Scump and Clay, Shotzi and
Yeah.
Crim team. Although I did go and watch, I think I was watching Clay's POV. I was just like, man, Scump has like 70K viewers. I'm gonna go throw some viewers at Clay or somebody who's
Yeah.
sitting down there with like 1.1K or something. So yeah, I was watching a little bit of that. Obviously I tuned in for like the 30-minute grand finals. I think it was a 3-0 because the Faze team came from winners, so it was pretty quickly dispatched of, kind of anticlimactic, but it was just showed the dominance that Faze has on a given day.
Yeah, it was. I was watching some of the some of the stream as well. I was actually tuned into Crim because, I mean, those of you that listen to the podcast know I think that dude is just comedy. I love Crim. I think everything he does is funny. So I was tuned into him and just watching him like roast Shotzi for being nervous to talk to him. And then Scump gets in and he instantly just starts roasting Scump. And it's kind of cool to see them like play together again because they seem to like be getting along just fine, have a good relationship, which is awesome to see because their relationship was always so funny with like Scump kind of just acting like an idiot and then Crim just roasted him for it. And that was kind of fun to watch that again. And they seem to be actually like vibing and playing pretty well together. And it was fun to watch. They almost lost to Karma and a bunch of retired players in the first round, but they ended up coming back. And then obviously that MW Faze team dominates. I mean, those of you that are longtime listeners of the podcast, you probably thought I was like drooling when I saw that other team, Kenny and Cammy on the same team. And those are like my two favorite players in the CDL. I think like that team was super fun to watch, and I wish it was a real team because I absolutely just love Kenny and Cammy. But fun tournament to watch. It was fun to get kind of our first taste of watching some variant. Got to watch some hardpoint. It's a little chaotic. Obviously, they don't know what the maps are going to be, but yeah, I thought the tournament was pretty fun to watch. It was a great idea. I would love for that to be like even off-season tournament ideas or just like random tournament ideas. It's super fun to just like not let people pick their team, but here's a sub duo, here's an AR duo, and just let them spin and like see what happens. I think that's kind of a fun tournament idea. So shout out to Hitch.
Yeah, I thought it was. Like you said, I thought it was fun. Fun idea. Definitely got a lot of viewers and
Oh yeah.
a lot of hype around the tournament. I think it was probably the most viewed one of all the off season shenanigans that were going down. But like you said, the respawn was kind of weird at times. Just
Yeah.
like just super high engagement hard points. I think we'll get into that when we talk about Vanguard maybe a little bit. But
Hmm.
um, kind of still ironing out what the competitive maps will be, and then obviously whenever we figure out what the third game mode will be, that'll kind of come in as well. But yeah, a good little teaser for what's to come. Yeah, I guess I'll reserve the rest of my Vanguard talk for when we actually get there.
Yeah. And then one other like funny note that you put in here: the pros already made more winnings than Surge, Legion, Royal Ravens in the Cold War season as a whole. Which I mean, you put this note in here. I actually didn't hear this, but I think it's hilarious. These pros been playing just these preseason tournaments, and they have more winnings than three of the teams did in Cold War all of last year. That's just absurd to think about. I don't know if that's more bad on those teams last year or just how good those teams been playing. I want to lean towards saying it's more bad for those other teams because it's kind of funny, but that's absurd to think about from just these preseason tournaments. Some of these players have already made more than three of the CDL teams did in prize winnings.
Yeah, it's pretty comedic to think about. The placements and none of those teams being at champs either.
Yeah.
And just how like I don't know if these players are kind of banking off of prize earnings as well as their contracts to make a living and stuff. Like obviously there's a huge disparity between the better teams and the lesser teams. So I thought it was kind of funny to to think about how much money is in these is in these preseason you know charity events and stuff too. Um, or I don't know if this one was charity necessarily, but just it was kind of funny because obviously Simp and Abezy are just like they're just rolling and they're
Yeah.
eclipsing you know all of like Octane's earnings from Cold War. It's like, oh man, down bad.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That's just like such a funny stat. And I mean, hopefully it turns around for some of those players this year. But with some of those teams, like Legion, I don't know if it's going to get any better. But we can move on. Talk about the process, the OpTic Envy merger. This one obviously won't be as detailed and super long as the last one was. Last week we talked about for like an hour because there was so much to unpack. This one was a little shorter, kind of mostly like a Hecz monologue, basically kind of talking about the OpTic Envy merger and some of the things he'd done in the past and his vision for the future. And I thought it was a pretty interesting one to listen to because those of you that know, I mean, I've been following esports forever, and Hecz is kind of like somebody I look up to in the space as like obviously I'm not an aspiring pro, so like it's a little different looking at the pros. I admire what they do, but like Hecz is a business guy. I've always been kind of a business person. Some of what I studied in college and like just kind of see his business model and get like a deep dive into his process and his thinking is something super interesting to me. So I was really entertained by this episode. It was obviously short and sweet, not something super fleshed out like the last one with the super high production and everything and editing, but I thought this one was super interesting, and we can kind of dive into more of the parts. The first one being the plan was to turn basically NRG into OpTic, and that kind of fell through. He didn't go into super like a super detailed story as to why that was him being Hecz, because I mean I think that's a lot for Andy Miller, the founder and CEO of NRG. I think he obviously doesn't just want to like tell his side and just like not give him a chance to talk about it. And I don't know that the relationship between the two of them is the best anymore after Hecz is not with NRG anymore and they kind of split up. But it basically sounds like they had a lot of ideas for how to try to turn NRG into OpTic, and they talked about it, and it was a possibility, but it just seems like in the end, kind of fell through. They couldn't come to a full agreement on what that would look like. I have to imagine that's probably because Andy Miller didn't want to just completely give up his baby NRG that he'd built, and I mean that makes sense. I probably wouldn't want to do that either. So it seems like it was just a situation where uh, both of them wanted one thing and they just couldn't come to a full compromise. So I don't know if Andy fully agreed, but Hecz was like, you know what, I think it's just better to split up so we can both do exactly what we want. And it seems like that's at least what happened to me. But yeah, the plan was originally to turn NRG into all of OpTic, which would have been crazy. I mean, there would have been no OpTic envy, and we'd still be kind of in the situation we were previous to this announcement.
Yeah, I think it was also kind of discussed when Hex and Hastro went on the flank. I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to a little bit of that, but they were kind of
Yeah,
saying that it still would have been Huntsman probably,
yeah,
and obviously that's something that Hex was pretty passionate about with like the branding around Huntsman and everything like that. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting to see down the line if Andy Miller's willing to disclose or like talk about what the process was like, because obviously Hex was saying like once the opportunity came back for him to reacquire OpTic, that's kind of when you know he knew that was the only thing to do for him,
mhm,
and that you know whether or not Andy went along with it was going to be inconsequential to him reacquiring the brand. Um, so yeah, just kind of the what ifs, and
yeah.
I'm not too caught up in the past with like NRG and like, oh, I really wanted them to be this staple thing in Call of Duty, but I don't know, just kind of interesting to hear Hex's perspective. Obviously it was a really short episode of the process, so it was kind of just more him saying like his little like sound bites and stuff that we've always heard him say ever since he reacquired OpTic, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it was super interesting to hear that as well because I think we all kind of were wondering what happened with that relationship. Like they were making the Energy Duo podcast. They seemed to have a great dynamic. They had good chemistry in the podcast, and like listening to them talk about like all that was the business behind the organizations and the business behind esports and stuff was always something interesting to me to listen to. And then all of a sudden the podcast stopped. We didn't get an explanation why it stopped. Andy used to always tweet about the Huntsman and like talk about OpTic and stuff, and he just stopped. And Hecz stopped talking about NRG, and like it's just kind of like weird. Obviously, we knew something was going on, but they just like for a long time have just like stopped interacting, basically, which was just, I mean, kind of odd. Now we kind of know what the reason for that was, and why they basically stopped talking completely on social media and most likely behind the scenes as well. But something super interesting. It kind of makes sense why they didn't want to each give up their brand, but sad obviously to see it not work out, but glad that at least NRG seemingly doesn't want to be in the COD League and they were able to at least get out and potentially sell that spot to Envy and hopefully sell it to somebody else and get us our 12th team. But yeah, kind of a weird situation. Obviously, our next little thing we were going to talk about was Hecz and OpTic deciding to split, but we kind of got into that, so we can move on to our next point here that we wanted to talk about and dive into the process, which was um, do you buy the esports kind of as an entity and how much more can it grow? Which I think that's maybe why Andy and NRG wanted to get out if they didn't have OpTic because they necessarily don't know how much the CDL can grow. I don't know if that's the case because they're in the OWL Overwatch League, which is also a big question over there is how much more can it really grow? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when Hex is monologuing there, he's like, "Oh man, we're at like level 3 and it's gonna go to 100." So like he's talking about everything that they're doing here today is kind of like inconsequential, and everything that's been in the past of OpTic is inconsequential, and like compared to what he sees esports as in like when it reaches this level 100, as he says. Um, it just made me think a little bit like, does he like? obviously the growth of esports being exponential, like, are we just gonna like, is the public just gonna assume like esports is like gonna be more and more of their lives or something? Because obviously it has to get more mainstream and more notoriety, because I just don't know how much more like the scene can grow, or how much more. I don't know. It was just kind of interesting to see like he obviously Hex has like this very like philosophical idea of what he sees the future of esports being. It was just kind of interesting. Like he spent a good like minute talking uh about that. So it was just kind of interesting to me to hear that.
Yeah, he obviously is pretty bullish on the future of esports too, and I mean, obviously he's going to be. This is like his baby and something he helped to build. But yeah, I kind of agree with him when he talked about esports as an entity being at level 3 of 100 and like it can grow a bunch and stuff because like I think we're just tapped in. And I think like you saw the potential of it with, I mean, this is going to be weird. People are probably going to be annoyed I even mentioned this game, but I think you saw the potential with Fortnite. Like, I remember like just, I mean, think a few years back when I was in high school and stuff, like gaming and everything, like playing games wasn't like something that was cool. Like it was like people didn't really like if you played games, like people didn't talk about it that much because like it wasn't something that was viewed as cool and like gaming just wasn't mainstream at all. Like you didn't hear like celebrities talk about it or like athletes really. Maybe a couple did here and there, but like they didn't talk about it. And now like after Fortnite and like people like a lot of celebrities and like mainstream people playing it, a lot of athletes, like people are doing like deals. Like you got like Kyler Murray joining Faze and like streaming, and all these NFL players and NBA players are streaming now. Anthony Davis streams GTA roleplay all the time. Like all these big names are streaming it, and like I think we saw the potential, and like the viewership in Fortnite was absurd. Like there was millions of people watching the World Cup, and like I think we saw like the potential that like when a game comes out and it's good, like people are willing to accept it more. And like I think Fortnite blowing up like showed a lot of parents and like older people that maybe like don't know much about video games that like, hey, there's a big industry here. There's a lot of viewers. Like people are making a living off this. And like I think when now the people notice that, there's a lot more people that are starting to invest in it. We're getting franchise leagues. And I think it's just a matter of time before, I mean, maybe we're not the size of the NFL anytime soon because that's like an insanely huge brand. But I think like we are on that level 3. Like there's a lot of room to grow. Now that's not a guarantee. I'm not saying it's a guarantee we get to that level 100, but I really do think we're at one of the early levels, like you said, and that's just a conversation I really appreciated because, like I've said a couple times here on this podcast, like the business of esports and how to grow it is something that like I'm thinking about all day and like thinking of different ideas how I can create my own lane in esports, and it's a really interesting conversation because obviously nobody really knows where it's going to end up. We might be at the peak we're ever going to be at, and we might be at the floor, or we might be somewhere in the middle. Nobody really knows, but it's a super interesting conversation.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next part of the process. Hecz also mentioned, he mentioned this a little bit in like previous podcasts and videos, like since the announcement of the Envy merger, but he talked about OpTic with resources. He was kind of talking about how in the past he didn't really have resources. He had OpTic, but he didn't have like the resources that all these other orgs have. And him and Hitch like to call it the fake money when they get investor money. Like he's like, before everybody had the fake money and the investors, OpTic was like the thing. It was the big org and everything. It had the most followers, like the most fame behind it, and everybody wanted to be in OpTic. Everybody watched OpTic. And then he talked about how like now OpTic is super dangerous because it's OpTic with resources, saying that he has like the backing of the corporate at Envy, and like all these people are just going to give him the freedom to really like be the creative behind the brand. And I think that's like something pretty powerful. And I really do think it's true. I don't think he's ever had the money that like some of these people have had behind their content since we started getting big investors coming in and dumping millions into orgs to help them grow. I'm interested to see where it goes. I think like their content's gonna go up because they've been going out of the Hecz quarters and they have great camera people and editors and stuff like Matt and I believe Cepho and Roger and all those guys work on it, and like they do a very good job with their production. But like it's a different level when all these teams are making it out of studios and stuff. Now with Envy headquarters, they have the resources to make it out of studios and have a lot more people working on the videos instead of just Roger and Matt and like a couple editors. So I think it's something super interesting, and I'm excited to see potentially what OpTic with resources could do. I hope they try to step it up to the next level. I hope they continue to make the kind of content they were making, but I hope they use these resources, and I believe he will, to like fully step things up and get to that like 100 Thieves level production, because like 100 Thieves has that huge production team, and they're like, I don't know, just the vision of their videos and how much actually goes into them is, I think, like next level and above any other esports. So or any other like esports org. So I'd be interested to see. I think OpTic's really gonna kind of improve, and I feel like I'm behind what he said. I think OpTic is the first time they have real like corporate resources and backing.
Yeah, I kind of came at it from a different angle, to be honest. With like, does this mean that he's able to like actually hire more like people for the competitive side or something, or um, like who knows if in the past maybe they wanted to bring on an analyst or another coach or something, and that he just
Yeah.
didn't have the money there. Because obviously we know that obviously the content is second to none really with like how much work the process takes to produce and stuff. So maybe just having some more hands on deck to help get things churned out faster
Mhm.
maybe. Because obviously like Hecz is not short on ideas for content, but what they are short on is like being like competitive, or being like at the very top echelon of competitive teams.
Mhm.
So I don't does that for me, like OpTic with resources means like they have no excuses now for not being like for not winning maybe multiple events or winning another championship. So that's kind of the angle I was approaching it from, because obviously like you said, the content will make itself with them.
Yeah, I definitely think that's valid. I actually think it could be a little bit of both. The reason I took it from the content side was he talked about followers and like how they were at the top of the game before everybody got that, like the fake money, as him and Hitch like to call it. Um, Before everybody got that, he's like, yeah, we were at the top. Like we were the team. We were the team that could be in the position of getting $1 billion evaluation and becoming public like Faze if we didn't have that 3 year gap where we didn't have control and we weren't able to like have all the content. We didn't have the brand for a little bit. So that's why I kind of thought he was talking like the resources to like grow the brand, but it 100%. I didn't even think of that angle, but you're 100% right. It could also be with competitive because, like he talked about, like he made a pretty big emphasis in his own eavesdrop podcast that he did with Hitch just a couple days ago, and the process about talking how like he was paying the players' salaries completely like out of like Hector Rodriguez's pockets, like out of his pockets, and like he obviously probably like saw that they had Sender and they had like guys like Karma still on staff where he could maybe like pop in and try to give advice. And he's like, I don't want to pay a full another person's salary when I don't feel like we fully need it because it's coming out of his pocket and not an organization's like an investor's pockets. So that does like make sense. Like he has the resources now that he's got the backing of investors. Like, hey, if we need an S&D analyst mid-season like Faze hiring Tupac, we get one because we have the resources to do that. So I definitely think that part's true as well.
Yeah, I just think that like you know when when he lost control like after 2017 and stuff with them, like obviously OpTic was kind of, they were lacking in the financial backing. That was the only thing that they were lacking in, because
Hmm.
like all these other orgs and stuff, or a lot of these other orgs, they had the ability to seamlessly transfer into the CDL and pay these salaries, but obviously Hecz had to team up with NRG, and he kept Scump and all those guys. Um, but it was probably NRG's money that was getting, going into the salaries, and then,
Hmm.
making this split. He had to find more backing quickly, but he didn't want to sell up ownership again. So that's why this like OpTic Envy merger, like it seems like a match made in heaven, like we've said.
Yeah, it definitely is that competitive and content kind of marriage, making a perfect balance. Uh, and then the last thing, I know you said obviously Halo scene isn't really much of your thing, so you don't know much about these players. But the final thing in the classic Hex and like Vision process fashion, they had like a little like, hey, video's over, and then all of a sudden little music starts playing. Hex walks over. He's about to grab his Call of Duty World Championship ring. And then he's kind of like, nah, camera kind of gets that out of focus, focuses it on the Halo World Championship ring. And he picks that up and he goes over to the elevator, opens it, and out walks the new Halo team. They have Pistola, APG, Lucid, and Trippy on the roster. I know a pretty good amount about Pistola and APG. Lucid and Trippy, I believe, are newer players. I might be completely wrong, but I don't know too much about them because I'm only really like an OG Halo watcher. I haven't watched like much Halo 4 or 5. And then the coach is Lunchbox, another one of like the top 5 to 10 players of all time, an absolute beast. One of literally like undoubtedly a top 10 player in Halo history. So like a pretty insane coach. And then Pistola is like, I was telling Kyle like the best comparison possible. I literally like couldn't come up with one before the podcast, but like he's at the same level that we say of like a Clayster. He's like that 3 to 5 range for like best players of all time. He's way up there. APG is one of Maniac's best friends, I believe. He's been an OpTic in the past, another like top 20 player of all time using that Halo top 20 series, and kind of a cool thing to see. I mean, OpTic's back in Halo. Hopefully that's going to help Halo blow up. Hopefully we can get some of those Halo fans to come over and check out some Call of Duty since they're back. good for the Halo scene, good for OpTic. It's awesome to see them getting into other esports because maybe that means more are coming. Maybe that means Valorant teams coming and all this stuff, and CS is coming, and we can get more fans to cross pollinate from over there. So excited to see the Halo announcement. Excited to see OpTic kind of getting back out there and not just being stuck in COD and in content. They're finally able to get back out there and get some more esports under their belt.
Yeah, well, it kind of touches on what was kind of revealed in the on the flank is when they were Hecz and Hasher were asked if OpTic would be solely in Call of Duty or if the name would be branching into other esports, and they said, "Yep, it's gonna do that." And then obviously, like you know, Hecz wants to announce things on his own terms, and thankfully, Leaksy didn't leak this one out.
And he has connections to that scene. He could have leaked probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's in the corner with his mouth taped shut or something, but
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so kind of exciting to see. At least they're making this announcement pretty early on, and obviously the game just dropping today, so it's pretty hot news.
Yeah, and we have a little more Halo stuff to talk about, but we'll save that for a little bit and kind of dive into Vanguard because I feel like probably most people listening to this are more interested to hear some thoughts we have on Vanguard than Halo. But it involves a lot of your probably favorite players in Formal, so we'll talk about that a little later. But kind of getting into Vanguard now, we've seen some teams play scrims. Obviously, we talked about S&D tournaments. We've heard GA talks. We'll kind of get into some of that stuff. But first, being teams playing some scrims. I mean, I know we heard like it was going to start after Thanksgiving, but now it seems like pretty much everybody's going ahead and just started them anyways. We've seen a lot of people have been saying like Faze has been struggling in respawn. OpTic's been looking dominant. I think I've heard a lot of like Minnesota is struggling. I think Paris has been surprising people and playing a little better than they thought. So like things are all over the place. I mean, anybody that's taking scrims and saying like this team is easily gonna be the best team in the game, this team is gonna suck this year and they're struggling, like chill. It's the first week of scrims. People are literally learning how to play the maps and how to rotate and where people are spawning, and things are kind of chaotic. We don't even know the full meta. What is the meta for guns? We don't fully know yet. Like we have an idea, but we don't know if it's going to settle on that. Like we don't even know if snipers are going to be in search. Just a lot of crazy things are going on. But I think people are just looking for ways to like know exactly how the teams are going to play out. So they're looking to read a little bit too much. But it's interesting to see that we've seen teams like FaZe not just absolutely dominating scrims, kind of like they did all of last year. And also interesting to see maybe Paris isn't playing as bad. And I don't know, teams have started scrimming and we're finally getting a little info.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny to see the reactions on social media. Like obviously, OpTic is taking like more than 50% of the maps off of Phase, so then that kind of creates the old oh my god, it's OpTic's year versus the oh my it's too early, like just settle down. And then
Yeah.
conversely, if OpTic is losing, it's like oh it's too early, and then all the anti-OpTic people are like, see, they suck, like they gotta bench somebody or whatever. So it's just kind of funny to see the reactions. I'm not putting a terrible amount of stock into early scrims. um I haven't admittedly been watching a ton of Twitch streams either. Just kind of seeing the aggregated results and stuff, but just kind of interesting. Obviously, teams said they were going to wait until after Thanksgiving. I that went out the window. So, um, just to kind of see the competitive rule set get implemented, and then obviously we're getting into all these like GAs and everything. It's just kind of making my head hurt.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about and so much moving parts. But I mean, yeah, like you said, you can't put all the weight in scrims. I do think it's not, I'm not trying to say like you can't put anything in scrims, like early scrims. There definitely is something to like to be put into it. Usually if a team starts red hot and they're dominating one, they're dominating everyone. They're usually gonna carry it into the season a little bit and they're gonna start the season hot. And if somebody is really, really struggling in the first couple weeks, that usually is gonna carry over and they might struggle a little bit in the beginning. Like it definitely isn't like something to completely write off, but like if you're putting all your weight into these scrims, like you need to chill out. Next thing though, auto tax sprint potentially banned in the CDL. It was a slasher tweet. He was talking about how like it won't be banned in the CDL rule set, which the way I read into this is like it's not going to be banned in like league play in the CDL or like the custom games like CDL search. It's not going to be banned in there, but like there's going to be a way that the CDL like goes into like the players' accounts for matches and like auto tax sprint is like turned off as an option. Like you can't turn it on even if you wanted to. So I don't know if that means like tax sprint is going to be completely like taken out of like the CDL league matches, or if it's just auto tax sprint's going to be banned, so they have to actually button mash and break their controllers. But seems like there's a potential that auto-attack sprint's either out of competitive for the pros or just not an option. And I know that's going to cause a lot of controversy because a lot of people like to argue they should be able to use it, and like a lot of the main ARs say no, you should absolutely not be able to.
Yeah, I just think that like tactical sprint has no place like in Call of Duty. Like just leave it
Amen.
at one sprint speed. I think
Amen.
the only reason it's in is because it's running on the same engine as Modern Warfare slash Warzone.
Yeah.
Um, so just for simplicity's sake, I believe that's why they left it in.
Yeah.
So if we can just get it somehow disabled, because I certainly don't like breaking my left stick every night I play Call of Duty. Um, I haven't gotten into this one yet, but like I'm not looking forward to having to like learn some like slide mechanic and everything. Um, so if we could just take that out of the competitive aspect at least, I think obviously it has a place in Warzone. The map is huge and you
Yeah.
need to get around, and like the movement is pretty fun with tac sprint and everything. But just for competitive sake, just so we don't have to yell about like people using ATS or something, like because it would obviously be a big issue for challengers because they don't have these private accounts and stuff. So
Hmm.
just to avoid any kind of like controversy and stuff, like just take it out of competitive altogether.
Yeah, I agree. It has no place in Call of Duty 100%. Kind of before we move on to the next thing, a funny thing about auto attack sprint is obviously if you've heard me talk about it a million times, I don't have to get into it, but I'm not a fan of Modern Warfare, not a fan of Warzone, and like the squad that I play with, we all basically just play ranked. None of us are fans of Modern Warfare, none of us like Warzone. It's like a running joke now when we're all playing pubs together. If we all have auto attack sprint on because we're trying to get used to it because we think that's what you're going to be able to use and what you're going to have to use to make your movement smooth. So we'll be running and our gun will fly up in the air and like it'll cause us to not be able to get our gun up in time to shoot somebody in like a gunfight, and we just say thanks Warzone. That's what we say every time we lose a gunfight because of auto attack sprint. We're just like, yeah, thanks Warzone. Why is my gun flying in the air? Uh, Kind of a running joke. Something I think is funny every time. Like one of my friends likes to rage a lot, and like when he screams thanks Warzone, that kills me every time. Uh, but next thing we had to talk about pros trying to GA snipers. I mean, Kyle, I'll let you talk about this one a little bit because I don't want to get so heated on the podcast because this one pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the whole thing with GAing snipers. I think snipers definitely have a place uh, in competitive. I do agree that they need to be restricted in some degree of like, A, you should probably only have one person allowed to run it on your
Mhm.
team. And B, obviously with the like the custom class builder and gunsmith and stuff, just restrict like attachments that make it like a quick scope like god machine or something. Like you can
Make it
I
have
think
no
we
attachments.
yeah, I think we saw a lot of like fun sniper play in like in the variant tournaments and stuff. I don't think there's a reason. I think teams that want to restrict it are just like they don't have a good sniper, or they're just being like, filibusters to fun, I guess. Um but yeah, I mean, I think snipers should be in. I don't think they're broken in the sense that like you obviously can restrict them to be uh not like quick scope, auto lock, stuff like that. But yeah, so but that's just my thoughts. I want to see them in competitive.
Yeah, they need to be in competitive. I mean, you can sit back for 20, 30 seconds and just laugh at me while I say this, but like my first thoughts on it are if you want snipers GA'd, get better. I'm sorry that you suck with snipers and your team doesn't have a good sniper and you want an advantage in search because you're gonna get destroyed by Simp or Dashy because those teams have a good sniper. Uh like I don't know, just suck less is my first thought on it. Like get good at sniping if you think they're broken. And you think Simp is destroying you, well, Simp destroys you with a sub, and he'd probably destroy you with an AR as well. So like, it's not going to matter. Simp is still going to dominate you. Like that's what he does. I think that getting snipers out of the game is a weak mindset. I think it's for people that maybe aren't good with a sniper or don't have a good sniper on their team, and they just want an advantage in search. Snipers, I think pros have to remember at some points, like if they're GAing stuff and they're getting something that is just completely and utterly busted and broken out of the game, yes, that makes sense. But you cannot sit here and tell me that like snipers are absolutely completely busted. I mean, we've seen obviously we didn't see it last year because people thought they were OP and they were GA'd, but we've seen in so many games a player pulls out the snipe and they cost their team the game because they aren't picking up kills with the sniper. I mean, your favorite player Octane, he struggled a little bit when he was on OpTic in World War II with the sniper. He definitely I think lost them some search and destroys when he had the sniper, and that's like a give and take because we know if Octane has the AR out, he's beaming people and he's going to make plays. But he struggled with the sniper a little bit in World War II is like the one that sticks out to me, and he kind of maybe costed a couple searches where if he had an AR out, they would have done better. Like it's not that big of a deal. Like if a guy pulls out a sniper, like this would be happening if snipers are this broken. It'd be happening in every COD. Like somebody would pull the sniper and they drop 30 kills in an S&D and you won't be able to move. Like it doesn't happen. It's like every once in a while you see like the Simp BO4 takeover game, like with the sniper and he dominates. But that's part of what makes it exciting. Like one of the most famous COD clips over the last how many years is Miles screaming like Simp after he's on Arsenal, making that crazy play on the unit squad at Champs where he quick scopes like 3 people like flying up and like hitting some insane shots on them and like dominating around. Like it makes for some of the most exciting times in Search and Destroy, which can be a very dry game mode at times because there's not a lot of action going on. Like snipers don't need to be GA'd. If you think they do, get better, and they need to be in the game. Like they're not getting GA'd. If they get GA'd this year, I'm just going to lose full, and I'm going to have to watch some more boring Search and Destroy of people just pre-aiming with ARs.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a give and take with people pulling out sniper. Obviously, you're probably losing an AR presence on the map.
Yeah,
And we saw a lot in the last game with snipers Modern Warfare. If they don't get an initial pick, they're kind of like out in the open with a pistol. Like, um, maybe save a few like quick scopes or something. They're
let
looking
me
for
tell you, you
another
can't quick
gun.
scope in this game. They scoping so slow.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the give and take is equitable enough for you know to justify putting them in the competitive rule set. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and also especially in this game because like smokes at least seem to be working. You can smoke out a lane to like block a sniper's line of sight. Also, everybody talks about how fast you kill in this game. Well, if a sniper over peaks, you can team shot him and kill him in like 1 second because it takes like 3 bullets to kill with an STG if you have the right attachments on, maybe 4. So if he wide peaks, he misses 1 shot, you can kill him. Also, tack and flak are in the same class set. So if the sniper's using tack mask, you can double nade where you know he's going and kill him. Or if you know he's using flak jacket, you can chuck a stun at him and then push him out. Like it's not like with how fast the time to kill is in this game. It's if any game should have had G8 snipers as BO4 because you could stim and like there's no punishment. But like in this game, like if you over peak, you are getting ripped with how fast the time to kill is. So, like there are ways to counter a sniper. So I mean, they don't need to be G8, especially with this game with smokes working and not being able to use tack and flak at the same time. Like there are ways to counter a sniper. Just like that takes out so much of the strategy of the game. Like there's so much strategy involved with setting up your sniper to be able to make plays and why like, shutting down the other team's sniper by throwing your nades in the right spot and smoking out the right lane so your people can cross. Like it adds so much strategy to the game. They need to be in there. But I'm done ranting about it because I'm gonna lose full if I talk about it anymore. um, Speaking of the GA and snipers, though, we have also current GA and meta talk. I mean, obviously, right now the meta seems to be kind of settling on SDGs for the AR and then MP40s for the sub. I mean, there's a little bit of talk with the automaton being potentially the other AR. Some people are arguing for it. Some people think it's better. One of the notable ones I saw, Tom Gravity, one of the top challengers ARs. He was kind of vouching for the automaton to be the meta AR. He thinks it's better with how fast it shoots and how much of a laser beam it is. But meta seems to be settling on that. Some of the GA talks, I think people are talking about GA and the Gammon Bomb, which is basically like a grenade that blows up the second it impacts anything, it blows up. But seems like we're kind of settling on that the STG MP40 meta. I don't think there's another sub that's really challenging the MP40 at all, but maybe the automaton challenging the AR, and that's kind of where we're settled.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of letting you letting you take the reins on this, but yeah, it definitely it looked like a lot of STGs, MP40s. So obviously another 2 gun meta, unfortunately.
Yeah.
um, but it's 4v4, so I mean, did we really think there was going to be a third gun in there, like for the flex or somebody to take on? So, I don't know. I saw some people using. There was another like a side loading mag SMG that I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
exactly sure. I'm not exactly
the
sure what the name of it is, but
type 100 or type something.
Yeah, that one
Uh,
looked like, I mean, it had a pretty fast TTK, but I think that's just the nature of the game. Everything is kind of like
yeah.
insta beams, but yeah, I mean, just with Bloom on SMGs though, I don't know if you want to discuss
Oh
that a
my
little
god,
bit,
that's
but
ridiculous. Yeah. Um, yeah, so basically if you guys don't know what Kyle is talking about, like Bloom is kind of a thing. It was in Halo a little bit. It was in Fortnite, obviously. It's basically like where you shoot your gun, the bullets don't go exactly. Nah, but it's only on subs. Like in AR, where you shoot your bullet is where it goes. Like if my red dot is on somebody's chest, the bullet hits there. If that's when I shoot it. For subs, like if somebody's far away, it's basically almost like you're hip firing them. Like your bullets are gonna go within a certain like little radius, but they're not gonna go exactly where you're shooting, which is just the dumbest thing ever. Like the game should be hit scan. It actually was like that in BO4 as well with the SOG. Like you had to lead your shots from range, which is super dumb considering ARs don't have to. And then towards the end of the game, they turned the SOG into hit scan. And that's when it started frying, and that's when Simp really came up. Uh, but for some reason, it's like basically like the idea is when you shoot your sub from any kind of range that's not like basically right in the same room as somebody, you don't actually know fully where you're shooting. It's kind of just random, which is dumb. But kind of your talks about like having a flex gun, the automaton I feel like is so close. It's so close to being. It reminds me so much of the Maddox. It's got a super fast fire rate, faster than the sub in the game almost, which is kind of like what the Maddox was. It doesn't recoil, same as the Maddox. And it's got a little more mobility than STG. The only thing is that mobility, you're kind of slow with it. I feel like if they like increase the mobility you have and the speed you can run with the automaton, we're actually so close because it shoots so fast and beams so good from up close. We're like right there with having the automaton be a flex gun, but it's not there. I could potentially see it maybe working its way into the meta though. But yeah, Bloom is ridiculous. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
no, just kind of maybe the with gunsmith and stuff, maybe there'll be room to build like an SMG version of an AR. That's the only thing I could think of. Like if we want to build like a fast STG class or something, as opposed to like the post up STG, or like get the automaton in there and build it up to be like a faster moving gun. I don't know. Just kind of some thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm sure stuff will be GA'd though, so that'll probably go out the window in a few days. But yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see the automaton be able to speed up and become that like extra gun that somebody used just to add more variety. But next thing was kind of how the comp modes are looking. What would be our preferred third game mode? It's looking like it's probably going to be control. Like we said, maybe CTF is still the dark horse, but looking like it's going to be control. I think that'll play decent in this game because it'll be the one game mode spawns aren't completely chaotic on, with control basically having like set spawns where you continuously spawn in your base. Um, Overall, the comp modes, I think Search and Destroy looks really good. The bomb glitch, obviously, where you can see when somebody's defusing, is kind of ruining Search and Destroy right now. It's supposed to be fixed this week, hopefully. I mean, my God, it shouldn't have taken this long. Uh, but I feel like Search and Destroy is looking very good. I think with that being fixed, and hopefully them actually adding the setting they said they were going to, and like allowing the doors to be removed, I think we have potential to have one of the better search games we've had. The doors and the barriers are really ruining it right now, though. Like there are a couple like Damansk that's the worst search map of all time. I talked about on the last podcast. We won't get into it. It's like the worst map I've ever played for search. But one of the other reasons it's terrible, besides being able to just camp on top of that building, is I believe the A bomb site has 7 different doors you can go into,
I saw
uh,
that.
and like 2 or 3 just like breakable barriers. That's just too much. That's too much going on. There shouldn't be 8 entrances to a building and like a million ways to break in, and like you can't like make a play because like when you go crashing through a door, people hear it and they just like focus in on it. Like it's just dumb. There shouldn't be that many ways into a room. If they take out like the doors, if they add the setting that they said they were going to, where you could take out barriers and doors, like I think Search is going to be a good game mode this year. I think it's going to be one of the better ones we've had if that's the case. Uh, Hardpoint, I mean, you can get into this too. Hardpoint's a little iffy. Obviously, it's basically still squad spawns. I mean, you can still spawn people out, but like I don't know, Hardpoint's a little too chaotic. People like I think the clear thing was I was playing eights with my friend and my cousin and like some of his friends, and like on Castle, we were like basically one of the hills is in like the back corner of the map, and we were there and we pushed out to the hill, maybe left like 5 steps of room behind us. All 4 spawned behind us when we team wiped them, like in the back corner of the map. Like spawns are just a little ridiculous. They need to be ironed out. I hope they can get pros in, kind of like they did during IW, and have them help out with spawns because Hardpoint's looking a little iffy right now, but Search is good.
Yeah, I have a big gripe with like the doors and the barriers and stuff. Like I think a lot of these maps are kind of being like ruined almost because like uh you can shoot through barriers and like get a small little sliver angle on something, and it's just so cruddy that like nobody's ever gonna check it.
Yeah.
Um and then also like uh I don't know, just the I don't know, just like I don't feel like these barriers and stuff like bursting through a door or like crashing through a window has any like it's just so like unnecessary. Um
Yeah.
like we see normal Call of Duty maps play so well without needing doors and stuff. Like just keep doors for like Warzone or something. Like I think they're just like building all the stuff like with the engine on Modern Warfare, and it's like just take another day and like take the doors out or something. Like I don't get it. And then to get to like what we think the third game mode is, I don't know. Have they announced Control yet, or is that just kind of some rumored thing?
No, it's basically I think the pros learned this week from like what we saw on Twitter. I think the pros learned what the third game mode is. Control is just basically like the unconfirmed rumor. Like it's like what it's like looking like is likely to be the mode. I think,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's probably the best option. I mean, CTF could be very good as well, but with the way spawns are, I don't know about CTF.
Yeah. So I mean, the one other thing is like, are we thinking the maps are like the appropriate like for how fast the movement is and stuff, and like how it's just kind of just like a fly kind of deal. With like how fast you need to move and get into engagements and stuff. Like the maps are big enough to handle Control.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. So that I don't know. It seems like that would. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Control is a pretty easy game mode to understand for for
yeah,
casual viewers as well. So is CTF, but I think there's
yeah.
um I guess there's like less ways that CT or that can Control could go wrong. So I'm not exactly sure. I'd like to see them give CTF a try just to kind of for the old
So would
time's
I.
sake. But I'm thinking it probably would be Control if I had to put money on it.
With
Uh, but yeah.
with the way hardpoint is in this game, I almost wish we'd go back to like the jetpack formula, and I wish we'd go hardpoint, search, then control, then CTF, and then search to finish it out. That's what we did in the jetpack games. There's only one hardpoint in the series, and then like in Black Ops 3, we had uplink and CTF. I kind of wish we'd go control and CTF with the way spawns are in this game and how chaotic hardpoint is. Like one hardpoint game might be enough, and then in two game modes where spawns are controlled and CTF and control, it might be kind of fun to watch. It might be more interesting in this specific game, but it's looking like we're going to get control. But I'm 100% on board with you. I would love to at least try out CTF and see how it looks. I think maybe that's what they might do if both game modes come at the same time. They might have the pros try both and kind of figure out which is going to work better. But I'd also be completely down for CTF. The maps might be a little big for it in this game because typically a lot of the best capture the flag maps of all time have been some of the smaller maps in the rotation. But we'll have to see when the time comes if they actually release those game modes because we still don't have them. But next thing we want to get into was what changes need to be made with the game. I feel like we've discussed some of the things. Obviously, like we discussed our thoughts on some of the GAs and auto tech sprint and stuff. I think we'll both agree that big change that needs to be made. We need the setting they promised us of being able to take out the barriers and doors. Like we need that change to be made. Other than that, I think it's just a basic spawn issue. Like I think we need to just potentially get the pros in to work on like a spawn system and like maybe make it less like you can't spawn on top of somebody in a hill. But other than like some spawn issues that the pros might actually be able to work out with how it seems like Sledgehammer's been cooperating, and then adding in the setting to remove the doors and stuff. I don't know that there's any like other like super. I mean, those are obviously pretty glaring issues, but I don't know if there's any like super big other glaring issues that need to be changed.
No, I think we kind of covered those in our previous talk.
Yeah. Then the last two things we had trophy system. Uh, I found this hilarious when the dev. I think he was like the lead designer maybe at Sledgehammer. I can't remember who it was, but he was like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna add trophy systems in the game. They aren't exactly, this is a World War II game. They aren't realistic." And then people were like, "Yeah, but there's red dots. That wasn't really a thing." Also, we're soldiers just running around slide canceling corners in World War II. Like, there's so many things in the game. There's a couple other things I couldn't think of. Oh yeah, were there flamethrower juggernauts running around in World War II? Did people just call in a pack of dogs in the middle of the battlefield. Like that, like so many things. Like it's so inconsistent. Like he says, a trophy system wasn't around at the time, but there are so many things in the game that are like that also probably wasn't around and wasn't a thing. So like there's no consistency with it. Uh, it sounds like there's potential. Like he didn't rule it out. Like he said, like yeah, maybe in one of the upcoming seasons he could come out like in season 1 or something. So hopefully that's a thing. But the whole argument of like it's not realistic as to what World War II was is kind of dumb because I mean if that was the case, why are there reactive camos? I don't think soldiers were running around with guns that had moving colors on them. Like, the argument that it's because of realism is just stupid to me.
Yeah, I think especially if we want to see like tactical and nades remain in
Yeah.
the game, I think trophies just need to be in, or else we're just gonna get those GA'd. Because
hmm
like I think like the nade spam has been kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, and
Um,
actually would be on board with the GA if they're not going to add trophies, and I wouldn't mind either like GAing it or like limiting it to like only 2 players in your team can use a nade or something. All right. Last thing we had to discuss on Vanguard, the Codcaster. I don't know if you want to get into this at all. The main thing with the Codcaster is obviously like the whole HUD for the Codcaster and everything looks good, but this year we have like the after action or like where you can look and it shows like non-traded kills, traded
I
kills,
really like that
kills
one.
per hill. I love it. That's a
That's the
huge
only
W.
that's literally the one that like the non-traded kills one was like, wow, this is so
Yeah.
cool. Like
Like I noticed like Simp had like 1 million, which isn't shocking. That's what he does is like Mr. Two Piece. So like he gets so many untraded kills, but it's interesting to see like you can it almost is like a way to see like we always talk about KD is and everything, KD is and everything. It's almost like a way to see how impactful your kills were in a way. Like if you had 30 kills and 20 of them went untraded, it's like wow, like you're getting a lot of kills and playing your life. Like it shows how valuable your kills are as opposed to maybe somebody who has 40 but like almost all of them went traded. So like he was basically getting traded on every kill. Like he didn't ever have like 2 pieces and pushing out spawns and stuff. Like it's pretty cool. And then like even the kills per hill thing is kind of cool. And like amount of time they got per hill. Like the detailed stats are awesome.
yeah, I really think it'll be beneficial for people like me and just every viewer really like so we don't have to wait for like the next week or something to like get a round 11 stats tweet with like Simp had the highest amount of untraded kills or something where we can just see it like live time and
Yeah.
it'll help really like flesh out some of these numbers like are you playing your life appropriately or like uh is this person just like they're getting a lot of like untraded kills, but they're not. I don't know, or like, are they getting traded out a lot? So maybe their map presence isn't as good. So I think it'll add a lot of just like armchair analytics for people at home watching.
Well, like us, we have a little more to get
Exactly.
into maybe.
I know exactly.
And also, I think like I believe. I mean, I might be wrong, but I believe on that like after action report too. They also show like the amount of time each player had in a hill and their kills per hill, and like that'll also allow us to like if you and I ever for a content piece want to do a deep dive into a certain map and kind of like give our thoughts on like analysis behind the map, like you can see like oh on this hill Simp he averaged 4.5 kills per hill on this on like the 3 rotations of the map, like that's a lot of kills, and like he had this much hill time, and then like oh that's because Faze's setup is this, like they let Abezy push out here, they have Arcitys anchor this spawn, and they let Cellium roam over here, and then Simp takes the hill. You can kind of see the way teams play specific hills, and then you can look and be like oh well on this hill like Faze has their entry sub Abezy like play the hill, but on this hill, the same hill, OpTic has Dashy, their main AR play this hill. Like, why do they play it different? Who has it more successful? Like, it allows for deeper dives into the game, which is something I'm always all for. Like, you can see the
Yeah.
different ways people play hills.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I just think it's gonna do a lot for um giving more people stats like right away, and I think like we've definitely seen the move with like traditional sports. They want to give everyone like more and more stats.
Yeah,
Just like
analytics movement.
exactly, yeah. So I think it's great. So just like a total W with Sledgehammer and the Codcaster.
Yeah, we like to like we always say I think we're two of the more fair people in like the scene about that is like we like to give them their criticism where we need to, but we also got to give them their props. Like this is a huge W, and like it wasn't something I heard a ton of people crying for and like asking like we need this in the game. They seem to more have come up with it on their own, and it's an absolutely huge W for whoever at Sledgehammer came up with this idea. Shout out to you because or whatever team worked on it because this is a fantastic addition to the game, and like I always like to do and you like to do. Like, we got to give a shout out when a shout out is deserved, and if we're going to
Exactly.
criticize the game all the time, like, you can't just criticize and cry about it. You also got to give shout outs where they're doing. They did a great job with this.
Right.
Kind of moving on to the last pieces of news before we get into our way too early power rankings is what we're going to do. The rest of the news we can kind of just touch on because it's not like super big stuff, but Pristini joined Atlanta Faze as a substitute. I don't think there's much of a shock there. Obviously, his twin brother Arcitys is on the team. I don't have much to say on this one besides great fit. Dude can play all positions. Obviously, he's never going to be subbed in for Faze unless of an injury or potentially like a COVID situation or just like an unforeseen circumstance. But he's the perfect sub. Has chemistry with all the players. Has played with all of them, but Cellium. Good for content. Just overall good fit. I like the move.
I think if he comes into a match, they might actually win.
Oh yeah, if he subs in for one of the subs, like, let's say he takes over Abezy's role as the entry, which is his typical role, like Pristini, Simp, Cellium, Arcitys, that's still potentially a top 4 team.
Oh, I think I think it's a top 4 team.
Like they're still really good.
Yeah, I mean,
and if he has to sub in for Cellium as a flex for a match, they're still really good.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a really good signing for Faze.
Yeah, good on all aspects, my opinion. All right, next thing, Challengers news. Rated is officially playing Challengers. Another one. I don't know too much to say about it. I think it's good for the scene in my opinion because Rated has gained a ton of popularity since he went over to 100 Thieves and started playing Warzone. So I think it'll maybe drag some more eyes onto the scene. Maybe a little more European viewers who are big Rated fans. Him being one of the most popular European players might drag more viewers onto the competitive scene. So excited to see him start competing again. Obviously, one of the more storied European players of all time, and I think it'll help bring more viewers to Challengers, which is something I'm always all for.
Yeah, exactly what you said. You know, bringing some Warzone viewers, maybe 100 Thieves viewers, into competitive, or at least following Rated. Yeah, but obviously Challengers, it's kind of the passion grind pit. So I guess we kind of know the stories that are there. So interesting to see if he has any success.
Yeah, it definitely will be. The other little piece of Challengers news we had, classic Shawnee Assault Exceed are teaming for Challengers. Do you have any thoughts on this one? Because my first thought when I see it is kind of, I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah, I don't know about. I guess we saw maybe. I don't know, just interesting. I don't know, Assault Exceed, just kind of a conglomeration of players. I don't really know if they're gonna have much success or like if they're gonna win. I could definitely see them being like in the elites, like a top 8 team if they're playing
Yeah,
well. But who really knows at the end of the day? It's just kind of a bunch of ex pro players, giving it another go. I don't know if any of them are going to be like first up to be picked up onto a CDL spot if teams start making moves. Um, I guess maybe the one I would keep an eye on would be Exceed,
you think
but
so?
I don't know, just because he's a sub and I don't
Yeah,
know, it doesn't have a whole lot of baggage with them. Um, because I don't think Shawnee and Assault, like I don't think teams are going to be like reaching in for ARs. Uh, I think obviously we've seen more subs get sub subbed in,
yeah.
play on words there, but I don't know, just interesting. I don't know, not a whole lot else to say on it.
Yeah, I agree. The reason I say underwhelmed is because Shawnee and Assault seems like a recipe for disaster. I see this team Exceed plays with a ridiculous speed, and a lot of times Classic plays with a ridiculous, like, kind of reckless abandon and crazy speed. I feel like Exceed can be a good entry guy. Classic can kind of be a good cleanup sub, but I feel like there might be a lot of Exceed and Classic flying to the hill. Shawnee and Assault, why are you guys still standing in the spawn? Like, it's going to be a huge pacing issue. Like, Shawnee and Assault are kind of known for being statues and super slow, and Exceed and Classic are maybe known for the opposite, being really fast. So I don't know. I think Shawnee and Assault are very, very slow main ARs that probably shouldn't be on the same team together. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe Shawnee's going to take on the flex and speed it up, because if there's one thing we've seen, Shawnee can kind of mold himself to whoever he plays with and be a good glue guy. So I could see him maybe molding into a pretty good flex. He's done it in the past a few times, but I have all the faith in the world in Shawnee. I'm just a little questioning the team composition here, but we'll see how they do. Like you said, I could see them being in the elite and being maybe one of those top 8 teams that's fighting in there if it's still the same format. One of the last things we have to talk about for news before we get into our power rankings: Dashy versus Ben Janesine from the flank. I haven't seen too much about this one, so maybe you can take point on this. But it basically is like Ben's always been pretty critical of Dashy and maybe him showing up for practice and stuff and his performances. Uh, I mean, to me, the one thing I'll say about it before I let you take over is Dashy basically is trying to say that Ben has no credibility to comment on Dashy, which I mean, it's one of my least favorite things that people do. They do it to like sports analysts that maybe never played in the NFL if they're talking about football. Like Ben is somebody who's been like a coach and an analyst for Faze and been around the team, the COD team back in the day, and like he watches countless hours of COD and he's offering his opinion. And clearly, people like to hear his opinion because a lot of people tune into the flank. Uh, I mean, heck, more people almost listen to the flank than watch the CDL. Like a lot of people are tuning in and people love it. And I'm one of those people that loves listening to it. It's a fantastic show. And Ben is offering his opinion as somebody who puts in a lot of time watching Dashy's craft. And I get where Dashy's coming from. I can understand how it can be frustrating to have somebody who doesn't play and doesn't know the struggles criticize you. I understand the point of view, how that could be very frustrating. I get it. I get why he can maybe lose his cool and say something about it. I'm not saying I don't see where Dashy's coming from, but I hate when people use the "Hey, you never played in the NFL, so you don't get to talk about it," or "You never played professional COD, so you don't get to talk about professional COD." Like he's still a viewer, probably knows more than most viewers, and he has every right to offer his opinion, and his opinion isn't unwarranted. Like you wrote in our notes here, Dashy's AR teammates have pretty much always had their worst season when they play with him. He hasn't won since Black Ops 4. Like I think Dashy's a disgusting player. I both think we think yeah, he's an amazing player, but like I guess I'm not really taking a side in the argument. I don't because I don't know much about it. But I personally just hate when people make the argument that, hey, you've never played this, so you don't get to talk about it. Like it's like a gatekeeping thing that I just hate.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the criticism was uh, like Ben was saying, oh, he plays too slow or he plays too fast. So it's like, so Dashy's like, well, what is it? Like, what's the whole like thing? And and then he's kind of just like trolling with his stream, and he's like, Ben J's never loaded up. Has he ever spawned into a map? Like, what's his what's his ground to stand on for criticizing? Um, or just to be critical. I don't think Ben was like coming at Dashy like ad hominem, like Dashy's a bot or something, like he can't play the game right. But
No. I
I
mean, Ben's
think
been gassing OpTic as one of the top teams this year.
yeah, and I mean I think that the criticism is warranted, and I mean like obviously Dashy's had a lot of like storylines around him the last few years about like, oh, he's like out till 5 a.m. He's not showing up for practice. He doesn't really care. Um, he's just like he's trolling all the time or something. So I think it's kind of all coming to not a head, but just kind of maybe he got a little frustrated, or he just wanted to like troll with his stream, because obviously all the people in Dashy's stream are like Dashy homers and stuff. I don't think anybody's in there to like you know get dirt on Dashy or something, but definitely a player that has so much potential. And the last few years we haven't seen him on main, so I think having him on main now totally like changes how he'll be analyzed as a player. So
Hmm.
I think this is really going to be the first year where we get to see, or I think the results will speak for themselves. Obviously, if OpTic isn't performing, like let's going back to the codcaster, we're gonna come with receipts. If OpTic's not performing, we're
Yeah.
gonna know we're gonna know why. Um, so yeah, and just kind of the interesting thing where like obviously no wins since BO4, and then the AR teammates, like so Black Ops 4 it would be Crim, and then in Modern Warfare it would be Slasher, and then
Hmm.
Cold War it would be Formal, all having coincidentally their worst years as professionals
Yeah.
playing alongside Dashy. Just kind of I did see that on Twitter. I'm not just pulling that out of my ass, but
Yeah.
just an interesting dynamic. Although those years he was playing flex, so like we said, can't really judge him too much on it, but just kind of interesting, and I don't know, just something to look out for. I don't like you said. I don't. I'm not really taking a side. I definitely want to see OpTic and Dashy succeed, but obviously with being on OpTic though, all the eyes of the entire COD scene are on you.
Yeah.
So, if you're not winning, people are definitely gonna let you know it.
Yeah, and one of my things on it too is we're kind of on the same like side of things as Ben. Obviously, the flank is on a completely different level than what we do, but we're kind of in the same way as like what Ben is. We're not former pros. We analyze the game. We like to talk about the game. We're basically like analysts in a way that talk about the game and talk about the scene. Both of us not even being close to ever being a pro and not in the pro scene, but big fans that know a lot about the game and we know how to analyze it probably more than the average fan. And so we kind of sit from the same point of view as him in a way, if that makes sense. And like, it, my thing is too, like, Dashy's got to understand, like, you're going to get criticized as a pro, and like any pro has to understand, like, you're never going to be perfect. You're going to get criticized. But if everybody just, every single analyst and every single person that talks about the game for the viewers' entertainment just said, this player is amazing, this player is great, he does nothing wrong, it would be boring. Like, there's got to be takes out there. And if a team isn't performing, people are going to try to find reasons why. That's a part of sports, it's part of esports. Like, I get how we can be frustrated, like I said, but like, my thing is, like, I encourage you during the year, if you have a hot take and you think a player's playing bad on our podcast, I don't want you to hold back. I encourage you to do it. I'm gonna do the same thing. Like, I encourage criticism of like a team if you think you know why something's going wrong. And guess what? You might be completely wrong. It might not be Dashy's fault at all. I might be completely wrong, but like, I think the way that he's almost pushing him for like you have no ground is, like I said, it's dumb to me. And if everybody just said, Dashy, you're amazing, Simp, you're amazing, Crimsix, you're amazing, and like nobody ever had a criticism or a take as to why a team might be struggling, it would be very boring and it wouldn't be that fun to watch the flank or any of these podcasts like the one we're doing. If everybody just said everybody was great, it wouldn't be fun. So that's kind of my final thought on it. And we can move on unless you have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, just like what you were saying, like with yeah, just like the last thing with like being open to criticism and just kind of from the perspective of outside people analyzing or just giving their takes. Like obviously, like do they just want nobody ever to like offer an opinion or
Yeah.
I think that's a big way to like grow the scene because obviously like you like started this podcast and we're talking about Call of Duty and then like obviously I joined up and we kind of like fanalize the you know
Hmm.
the matches in the league and stuff. So obviously, having more voices in the scene is a way for growth and a big way. So yeah, just being open to criticism or at least not um like putting it down or not allowing it. I think it definitely has a place in the scene.
Yeah, it always has a place. There's always going to be analysts for things, and like kind of the same thing is like with the best of three podcasts. I started getting into Call of Duty podcasts, listening to theirs, and none of them are former pros or close to being former pros, but they also offer a fan perspective, and it's just fun to hear other people's perspectives because everybody thinks about everything in the world differently. And uh, if you want to make your own podcast on anything, I encourage it. It's fun to do, and like, got to allow opinions in the scene. It can't all just be from one side because then it's boring if everybody thinks the same way. The world would be boring if everybody thought everything the same way. Uh, but we can move on to the next little thing. We got a couple pieces of news still to get through before we get to our early power rankings, but these should all be quick ones. Formal told Nade that he's going to play competitive for Halo on Twitch. We kind of know that Halo is going to be obviously broadcasted on Twitch now. Formal says he's going to play. On top of OpTic being in the scene, that's something pretty crazy. Formal's going to bring a lot of viewership because he brings a lot of fans over. Kind of shocking that he's not going to play for OpTic, but at the same time also not because who knows how committed he actually is. Like the people that OpTic signed are like long term committed to playing Halo. And Formal might not be. He might just like try it for a little bit, play a couple events, and just decide not to. And obviously, they don't want to sign a guy to a long term contract if he is not serious about competing. So says he's going to play. Probably going to have a pickup squad. Maybe he'll team with Maniac and have kind of a fun like orgless squad that's super popular. But interested to see him compete. He's going to bring a lot of fans over. So good for Halo.
Yeah, and we don't know the details if he's going to be on this like OpTic Warzone team either. So what
Yeah.
his time commitments are going to be with like playing Warzone maybe competitively and playing Halo maybe competitively. Um, Maybe he was just kind of like memeing or something though. That's always something you have to take into
Oh yeah.
account. Of like
He trolls.
he just freely gave that information up. So it doesn't seem like something that like if Hecz was planning some kind of announcement for Formal getting back into Halo or something, that seems like something that they would definitely want to capitalize the market on. So maybe Formal was just kind of trolling or something, and Yeah, so who knows, but definitely, obviously Formal has a massive following, so, no matter what he does, he's gonna bring the viewership.
Yeah, he is for sure. Um, Second to last little piece of news we have here, Paris, way at the bottom here of our news segment, announced their roster. Uh, fellow temp John Decimate. I don't have anything to say about this roster. We already talked about how underwhelming it is. Um, I think it maybe could potentially be better than their squad last year, but they finished 11th last year, so that's not saying a whole lot. It almost can't get worse. Uh, they don't put any effort into their content and announcing the roster, so I don't want to put in any effort in talking about them. They've been performing all right in scrims in S&D tournaments. They've got a little bit of potential, but overall, they tweet a picture for their roster, so I don't want to put in any efforts talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe this team will, fight to get out of the bottom 4, but I think it'll be all uphill for them, so I'm not
Yeah,
too thrilled, so, yeah,
at
let's
least
keep moving.
they have a little more talent in the past, but nothing exciting here. Last thing before we get into our power rankings, talked about a little bit with the flank, Hecz and Hastro talking about it. Due to like the regional controlling of franchising markets, Dallas cannot be home to another CDL franchise, which is basically what Hastro was talking about, because they own like what is it, all of like Dallas and then like north of Dallas is what they own in Texas.
They also have Austin too.
Yeah, and it's everything to the north, right? They own.
Right.
Yeah, so they basically own that whole like geographical area in Texas, and then I think like a lot of southern Texas they don't own, which I believe they were saying Houston is in the area that they don't own. So like if somebody wanted to come in, kind of like the Houston Outlaws are in Overwatch, and then the Dallas Fuel, which is Envy's team, they're both in there. I think he was saying that technically like if a team still wanted to be in Texas, they could be Houston, which is another major city. But interesting
Yeah,
to hear that like we can't have Dallas complexity.
yeah, so they obviously, I think everything's south of Austin, so, like, I think Houston, San Antonio, Galveston, Corpus Christi, all those cities would be up for grabs if another Texas org or somebody did wanna go
Corpus
there.
Christi complexity.
Exactly, CCC.
Yeah. Uh,
But yeah, I mean, so but I mean, like, who even knows where this 12th spot is maybe gonna go or where an expansion team might go? I think, there's still a lot of, areas within the US and obviously internationally just, abound with places where, you could set up a home base, so, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think the big story out of this was the fact that we can't have a Dallas complexity, which is what we were thinking might happen. Obviously, them being owned by the Cowboys, they probably want to stick in Dallas, but that can't happen. So I wonder where things could go from here. I wonder if they could technically take the southern part of Texas and also call themselves the Texas complexity or whatever, and we could just have two Texas teams or something. Uh, but I'm sure that can't be a thing. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it won't even be complexity, and they won't try to use Texas. But um, that was the big thing with that is complexity can't use Dallas. But we can move on to our power rankings if you're ready for that.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So for this segment, this isn't like a super fleshed out. Like Kyle and I didn't spend hours coming up with our power rankings. This was basically like we said we're gonna throw them together, like what we think our early power rankings are, and maybe debate a little bit, see if we want to move our teams around. Obviously, this is like way too early. We saw a week of scrims. We said we were gonna base it based on what we think the rosters are on paper, and then also some of the scrim results might play a little bit. Like if somebody's been struggling terribly, we'll maybe drop them a little bit because of it, and if somebody has been absolutely frying, we'll maybe move them up a spot or two because they've been frying. But it's mostly based on rosters and a little bit of scrim data that we've seen. Our way too early power rankings. We're probably going to do another segment where we're like maybe a month later, a month from now, where we're getting a little closer to more scrims and we do another way too early power rankings. But we thought since teams are starting to scrim, it'd be something fun to do. So we'll kind of get into it. The first spot, the 12 spot, we just agreed we are going to put empty spot for like that Washington, no longer Washington roster, that potential 12 team. Obviously, you can't just rate a team that doesn't exist. So they're sitting at 12. So we can move on to our number 11. I've got the Paris Legion in dead last. I don't know if you maybe
Yeah,
differed here.
yeah, Paris next.
Yeah. 10. I mean, I honestly think from 10 up, you can actually have different teams. Like there's ways it could shift around. I decided to put Florida here.
I have Florida there as well.
Yeah, I think the Vivid move maybe makes them slightly better, but I still like the upside of the two other teams that are kind of question marks that I put above them over Florida because to me I need to see Big Wake prove he can actually be a dominant second sub because there are so many elite sub duos in the league. I think our top 5, 6, even 7, maybe even 8 teams have like elite level sub duos. So I've got to see Awakening do it with a sub before I can move them much higher than 10.
Yeah, and I mean, for those that did we tell them that we didn't tell each other what we were picking, so kind of
Yeah,
surprised that you had Florida that low, but I just don't I'm not too high on them
I
so far, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could end up being pretty decent because they've shocked us both years. They've been better, really, both years than we kind of thought they were going to be.
Right.
But this is a team that I just don't have any excitement for the team. The other teams, I have reasons to get excited for. Like my next 2 teams, I could see them being worse than Florida, but I have more reason and more question marks and like more excitement involved with them, so they're ahead of them. But who do you have at 9?
I have Seattle Surge.
I do as well. I have Surge at 9. Kind of for what I just explained. I mean, I have them over Florida because I could see Florida being better than them, but at the same time, just the potential of Sib and Pred as like maybe developing the superstar players makes them more exciting. I think they might have more like volatility to the squad to make them lower than Florida, but at the same time, I think they have just a lot higher potential. I don't think I see like potential superstars on Florida. I think like Skies is very good. Awakening could be very good. Same with Vivid. Like all those players could be very good, but I see 2 potential superstars on Seattle, so I put them above Florida.
Who you got at 8?
London.
I have London as well. Oh man, we might go 12 for 12 here.
I almost
Or
moved London up
or
a
11
spot.
for 11 really.
Yeah, I almost moved London up a spot because you know how high this is like kind of my dark horse, my team that I think could make some noise this year. Once again, have them ahead of Seattle because I think they're very similar makeups. To be honest with you, like you've got Zero most likely playing the main or Gizmo, but like Zero and Accuracy are kind of similar players. Skilled players, more like veteran, going to be leaders, kind of leading 3 young guys, and then Afro and Nasty. To me, I think they have potential to be like I would say top sub duo, but Simp and Abezy exist. Maybe like the second or third best sub duo in the league. Not saying they are going to be, but I think they have that potential. So I think that rises them up to 8.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really know if we've seen a lot if we've seen London play a lot either, like,
No.
um or at least I haven't been in the Twitch, in my limited hours per day, but, yeah, so I'm obviously, I don't have a lot of scrim intel to go off of for London either, so, I think that's why they're sitting at 8, but I could definitely see them moving up or down based on their performances, like, they're one of those teams where I would be quick to move them down if they're if they're struggling, to be honest, just because, like, we've seen London, like, perpetually struggle, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think we're both pretty much putting them here because of the Paris, Florida, Seattle, London kind of grouping. I think we probably both ranked it the same way. We basically ranked it for the teams that we think have the highest potential rose to the top, and that's London and Seattle because of the young players they have. I think is probably the same reason you ranked it. Is that true?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's yeah,
This
that's
is where we
right.
could differ a little bit though, because we obviously have the same top 7 teams, but I feel like especially in maybe like the top couple, and then like this is where power rankings always differ. That like 3 to 7 range where there's all kind of even teams, but it's more of like a who do you have faith to take the next step. Uh, for me, I think we might differ here. Who do you have at 7?
It's gonna surprise you. I have Minnesota Rocker at 7.
Yeah, I have Minnesota at 7 as well.
My thoughts are I've seen them, struggling a little bit in scrims. And like it kind of plays into the narrative that a lot of other teams got better. Um, maybe like I think they're gonna still be a very good team in Vanguard when all is said and done. But right now, I think they might be slow to start. Like they might not place too well in the first, like let's say that it's a 5 major deal, and they might not place well for the first 2-ish majors. But I think they're going to be a second half team.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it's funny we both have them at like the 7, 8 range because you almost called me crazy when I had them there in our way too early predictions when I said they were borderline down there. But yeah,
I
I
think you said they might not make playoffs or they might not make champs, and I was kind of, or maybe that's what you said. I don't know, but I was kind of like
yeah, but
appalled.
if we're ranking them in the 7, 8 range, that is
Yeah,
borderline
yeah,
champs.
yeah. I mean, maybe in our mid-season power rankings they'll be like a top 5 team, but
He,
right now,
he
I think definitely in top 8, but close to the fringe.
Yeah, here's my thing with Minnesota. I think they're going to finish top 8. I think they're going to make it to champs. If that's obviously pending that we have 8 teams is the way champs goes again. But my thing with them is I actually think like their season is going to go. They're going to power rankings going into the first week of the game. We're going to have them probably 7 or 8. And I think after maybe the first, if we do like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again, I think after maybe stage 1, we might dip them down to 8, 9, 10. We might go on a dip. And then I think they're going to rise up, rise up, rise up. And then eventually I think they're going to get to around, like 6, 5, maybe push like towards the top. I think they're gonna have like a downfall early because they have a lot of players in their team that pick up. Priesta usually picks up the game a little bit more as it goes on. Attach usually gets better as the game goes along. Same with Major Maniac. These are players that kind of pick things up as it goes along. We don't know too much about Standy because we haven't really seen him play like any full game in the pro league, so we don't know about him. But I feel like they're a team that's going to start low and rise up as long as they stick with the roster. So I feel like they might even dip lower than this to start the year, which might sound like a hot take. But I think they'll settle themselves in around that 5 to 7 range eventually.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Next team, who you got? I hope we differ at some point, or it's going to be really boring if we have the exact same power rankings.
I have Gorillas at 6.
So do I.
Oh no, we're gonna go straight up the list here. I don't know. I think Gorillas excite me a little bit more, so that's why I put them at 6. I could have easily swapped them at 7 with Rocker just based on like the proven track record that Rocker have, but I was kind of taking a flyer. Hopefully this LAG team, like, can at least challenge us a little bit to, maybe throw them in top 5-ish or top 4
Mhm.
even if they really start hitting a stride. But I'm a little bit more high bullish on them, especially to be early performers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my thoughts.
You can tell me if you agree or disagree on this one. I'm interested to hear. I think I have LAG at 6, like I said, same thing. I think this is where we make a line and we say these are the teams that I could see potentially hitting the number 1 team in the game. Uh, I'm not saying LAG is going to be the number 1 team in the game at any point, but I don't see Minnesota ever just being like the definitive number 1 team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Like,
I would say that they would always probably play second fiddle to somebody else,
yeah.
even though that they definitely could win a major.
Oh, 100%. I
Obviously,
just don't see them
yeah,
being like no doubt
exactly.
like Minnesota's the best team. But I think this is
Right.
where I draw the line to say I could see LAG at some point being like, hey, they're the best team in the game. Like, I think Gunless has that potential best flex in the game. I think Slasher is elite. And then I think with Hook and Asim, they have potential to have a top sub duo. I could see if their teamwork is meshing perfectly. I'm not saying they're ever going to be the best team, but I think this is where we hit the team where we start to say this team has potential best team in the game, like peak. I don't think any team below this has that.
Yeah, see, I would probably say it would start with our next team here, or
Okay, that's
with
fair
my
too.
next team. But I see where you're coming at, and like, they definitely have potential, but I just don't think they would ever be considered. I don't think they would consensus be considered to be the best team in the game.
I guess I can see
Um,
that too. I would say they could settle it. I like at that 2-3 range where they're
right.
people are picking them to win the next event, but like they're not the favorite. But like you're not going to be shocked if they do.
Yeah.
All right, who's your 5 team?
Thieves.
I have the Thieves as well at back-to-back LA teams.
Yeah, so um obviously make or break year for them. It seems like or make or break year for a lot of the players.
Oh yeah,
Um they're definitely taking a flyer on some of these guys. I mean, especially like I feel like Draza is like so like Draza's got to have a good year, but really he's like proven himself, and I'm just really excited. I'm obviously I've been waiting for Octane to have a good year for 2 years now. Um, and Envoy coming in, and obviously the name recognition that is behind Nade and 100 Thieves is just so palpable, and just I think this team could be the best team in the game. Like, they have that consensus at some point, and that's why I was a little bit more hesitant with your Gorillas
yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah. I also have Thieves here. I agree with you that Draza shouldn't be in like a question mark year and like a he's got to prove it year, but I think he's going to end up being in that situation. I don't think he should be, but I think when people look at this team, they see Octane superstar. They see Envoy. Oh my god, he's an OpTic. Everybody loves him. They see Kenny. I think Kenny's almost in the position that Scump is with OpTic. I think he's almost undroppable because I think Thieves is committed to making him their franchise player. Like I think they pick him up in BO4, they keep him through potentially dropping him there, and then they carry him out of the OGLA team. Obviously, they're not the owners, but he goes to that OGLA team with all the struggles. He survives there. He never gets benched for anything. Then you go into Cold War. They have all the struggles. They make a million roster changes, but who's the steady? Kenny is there the whole time. Like, and Nadeshot has talked about how like this is his guy. Kenny is the guy. He's good personality. He's great in the game. He's my favorite player, obviously. So maybe I'm biased, but it seems like they're almost turning him into a Scump like figure. And obviously, Nadeshot knows that formula. I think he's trying to turn him into a Scump like figure. And now I think Octane is going to kind of be like his formal, since they're following that model of how OpTic became super popular. I think they're going to maybe keep those two. So like, I feel like Octane and Kenny are 100% safe on this team, and Envoy with his OpTic following, I feel like is also safe. So like by default, I think almost like Illy, Draws is kind of going to be in that situation where like he's going to be the scapegoat if they don't work out. So I do think it could be a make or break year for him by default, in a way. But I do agree this team has 100% potential to be the best team in the game. That's why I have them at 5.
You want to move on to 4?
Oh yeah, I bet you we have the same team. I think you're like sold we have the same list, but I think we might differ a little bit. Who do you have it for?
I have the New York Subliners.
Okay, we have a different list.
Okay.
I can't believe that I have Subliners higher than you.
Well, yeah, that's kind of surprising, considering I picked them to dethrone Faze.
Yeah, you're Mr. Subliners, and I was trying to cool your jets a little bit, but I have Ultra here.
Yeah, at least right now, I just think they might be a team that starts a little bit slower.
I can see that, yeah.
Or they might not, come out and be in the grand finals for the first major or something. But I could definitely see them challenging at some point, to be in that elite tier. And obviously, like being 4 off the rip in the power rankings, at least for me, is pretty high.
Yeah, it's
Obviously,
not bad at all.
a team with Crim and Clay. I just think the one question might be Neptune. But I saw a scoreboard where like Neptune had like 2.5 minutes of hill time, and then Crim and Clay were like leading the lobby and slaying. So that was just kind of funny. Like, maybe Neptune will just be that like glue guy or somebody that just like fills in the hole that obviously Hydra's going to be slaying his mind out, and Clay are just going to be doing whatever. And then if Neptune can just fill the gaps, I think that team has so much ability to go far.
I think they have a lot of players like that too. I think Clay consistently does his job as a main AR better than almost anyone, and I think Hydra can do his job as just like a slayer as good as everyone. And I've always said I think that's one of the things that makes Crim the GOAT is he's the best at gap filling. He that's why he's best as a flex. He always sees where the need is and he fills it. And he may not be the highest skill ceiling player that's ever existed. He may not be the best communicator because sometimes he can be kind of hostile, but like he sees a gap better than anyone and he fills it better than anyone. Like Crim is like the guy to do that. He's one of the best gap fillers. And I think this team, in my opinion, maybe besides Faze, has the highest floor. I think you'll agree with that. I think like there's no way this team is like unless something absurd happens, there's no way this team is bad. This team is almost like we have them. You have them at 4. I have them a little higher. We'll see where I have them, but I think they're almost guaranteed to be at least top 5 unless things go absolutely crazy. Like they're the highest floor team, so I think they're the safest team to put up here in the top 4. But we can get into my team a little bit since we finally differed. I almost forgot. I put the Ultra here. I can see putting Subliners here and moving Ultra up. We haven't seen like a ton of their scrims. At least I haven't. So I don't know if they've been performing super well, poor, if we don't know, because I haven't seen much of it. But I do think Toronto, you have to respect them at least and put them still up in the top 4 based on how good they were last year, not making a team change. I just think that Subliners are gonna, I don't know, the Crim and Clay effect is just always in my head. Like it's so hard to doubt them. But obviously my favorite player, one of my favorite players along with Kenny is on Toronto, and Cammy, the best playmaker in the league. Like he's the reason that they're up so high. I'm just questioning maybe chemistry issues with the whole, like they were maybe going to break up this offseason could come into play, but I don't have any negative to say. It's just like kind of a feeling thing. I just think that Faze, OpTic, and Subliners in whatever order are potentially going to be better teams than Ultra. I think maybe the ceilings are higher for them, but no disrespect to Ultra at all. I think they're if they're not in your top 4 way too early power rankings, you're insane.
Yeah, I'll kind of just jump there because I have Ultra at my 3.
Yeah, and I have Subliners at 3.
Yeah, so just to speak on Ultra, like I just think they're gonna have a lot more chemistry coming in off the rip to start. And like power rankings, like where these teams are right now, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be where they're at the end of the game. But I just think like Ultra have proven us wrong so many times. Like every time you want to say like, oh, they're just like they don't have like the flashy, sexy player. You have Cammy come out and drop like one of the best seasons we've ever seen as a flex, and like, I don't know. And then I'm not really buying into the whole like Kleenex like chalking the vibes because he was allegedly looking for a better deal or something. I think that's total hogwash, to be honest. I don't think that would like cause the team, or I don't think the team would let that cause them any turmoil. I think they have such a good thing going for them, that they would prioritize remaining like a cohesive unit more than like we can't team with Kleenex anymore because he was like allegedly looking for another team. I just think that's like BS in my eyes. So I'm a little bit higher on Ultra to start, but I could definitely see flipping them in New York because I think the 1-2 is pretty set.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the 1-2 is pretty set as well. I don't have too much else to add on. I think you did a good job with it because we just have the teams flipped, and I think we both agree that like we can each see flipping them. Like I would have no problem putting Ultra 3 and Subliners 4, and I think you'd feel the same way. You'd have no problem having Subliners 3 and Ultra 4. Like I think we're pretty much the same way. Like they're almost even in our eyes, but it was just a feeling thing. And I mean, if you were going to tell me the one difference in our list was the fact that I had Subliners higher than you, I would have said you were crazy. I can't believe that that's what happened. But like, would you agree they're almost interchangeable at this point? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
They're like at that same level. Like, I'm not going to say you're absurd for having Ultra ahead of Subliners. Like, I think they're pretty much on the same level. But I'm assuming that means you have OpTic at 2 and Atlanta Faze at 1.
Yeah.
Or do you have OpTic 1?
No, I have OpTic at 2. I think it's pretty disrespectful to not put Faze at 1, to be honest.
For sure. Yeah.
But OpTic is just like, obviously they've been like frying in scrims. I was like, oh man, they're kind of like looking back at some of their scoreboards and stuff. Like, so who really knows? I'm not gonna throw all my eggs in that basket though. With like, oh, they've been good in like November scrims, so they're gonna be number 1 team or something. But yeah, I'm just they seem to be obviously like from everything that they've said with like interviews and podcasts and the process and stuff, it seems like their vibes are like they didn't have any issues with like getting like Ilya and Shotzi like accumulated or integrated with Dashy and Scump or anybody. So I think that they all like love each other for lack of a better term right now.
Yeah.
And obviously they're having like some early scrim success. So hopefully that doesn't put them in a mindset like, oh, we're gods at this game, so we can just go like slack off or something. Because I think that could that might be something that they fall victim to. Maybe they're like, oh man, we just fried Faze in like 4 straight maps, so like we're gods or something. So like take our foot off the gas, and like so hopefully like Ray and Sender can keep him on track, because obviously like we've seen obviously OpTic has that narrative where they're super good at the beginning of the game and then they have that mid-season fall off. So kind of projecting a little bit, but those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, we're talking OpTic Faze. Coincidentally, I have my OpTic Faze sweatshirt I just got in the mail on. I agree though. I got OpTic 2, I got Faze 1. I couldn't agree more that, like you said, it's almost disrespectful at this point to have Faze anything but 1. And I also am not like on the train. Like I think we both agree they're the clear top 2 teams right now, but I'm not like opposed to you throwing like Subliners or Ultra ahead of them. I would disagree, but I'm not like it's not completely crazy. Anything other than Subliners and Ultra being ahead of OpTic, though, I think anything OpTic lower than like 3 or 4 is pretty absurd with the way they've been looking. But like you said, don't want to put too much stock. I mean, if we were putting stock into early scrims, we might put OpTic ahead of Faze if we weighed that heavier because OpTic has maybe looked better in scrims. But I'm not one of those people. I will say Scump teams in OpTic typically tend to start years very hot. That's kind of how they roll. AW, BO3, even World War II, as they started the hottest they were all year, even though they really struggled. Black Ops 4, they absolutely fried and almost dropped 0 maps in the first event and won it. And Dashy's only event went with OpTic. Like, they tend to start fast, so it's not shocking that they look so good early on. Like you said, it's always the question: will they stay focused? Will they be able to continue it? That's always the question with them. But I think they have potential to kind of look like they did last year and the previous year as maybe the best team in respawn at times. But it just comes down to the fact that it's disrespectful to put anybody above Faze right now. They may not be looking as good in scrims, but I mean, I think you can make an argument that Simp's been the best player in the league for 3 straight years now. You can also make the same argument for Abezy that he's been the best player in the league for 3 straight years. Heck, you can almost make the argument for Cellium that he's been up there in that conversation. And then you can make the argument that Arcitys has maybe been the best main AR over the last 3 years. Like, you can legitimately make an argument that at every position, their players are the best player. And you have no reason to believe that they're going to fall off from that. They all seem to still be in their prime and still be motivated. So to have Faze anything less than 1 is disrespectful.
Yeah.
Until we see it go past scrims. Like, if people are saying they're struggling, I mean, they split maps with OpTic, I believe, in their last scrim. That's not really struggling. Maybe the fact is OpTic's just a good team and Faze is a good team and they had a hard battle. Like, until we see this carry over into like Faze match losses or something, then maybe I'll move them down. But I gotta see it to believe it, kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really necessarily peg Faze as like a early starter or a late finisher. I think they're just gonna be like really good from start to finish. Like, they're like, if they ever fell out of the top 3, I think that would be shocking. Like, if we were to just do a power ranking at like X time and throughout the season, if they were ever out of the top 3, I would find that like extremely weird.
Oh yeah.
And I just don't see it happening, which is like why I put Faze there. I just think that, obviously they're the team to beat. Like, the whole narrative is like, man, are you guys building a squad to beat Faze? Like, although that mindset is very narrow, I think it's like, it's totally where, everyone's, where the public opinion is. It's like, well, Faze is just so damn dominant that we need a team that's going to beat Faze. So, and like you said, they just have all stars across the lineup. Not a whole lot else needs to be said, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm a little shocked that our power rankings are the exact same. Obviously, like, our consensus is like going to be roughly close, but I was shocked that we only had like the one difference. But that was the last thing we had to talk about. Call of Duty wise, really, we went decently long in this podcast so far from what I said, but we can close it out like we always do. If you don't have anything else to say about the power rankings, we can get into the down bad sports moment of the week. I think we all know what yours is going to be. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so my Detroit NFL Lions showed their ass on TV this weekend, on just yesterday on Sunday. They were playing an away game at Pittsburgh, and the game was just it looked like a middle school like Pop Warner game. Just like dropped passes, fumbles, a weird like, I think the score was 16-16, which is just like, you don't see that every day. Like, usually it's
Yeah.
like, if you know the NFL scoring, usually it's like a 10 or 17 or a 21 or something. But to see like 16-16 is just odd. And then the game ended, went to overtime. The rules of overtime are kind of confusing, but like, the 10-minute period for overtime ran out, so the game ended in a tie. The Lions kicker missed it was like a 40-something yard field goal, but it just like went nowhere near
He
the
looked like he almost missed
uprights.
the ball.
Yeah, he looked like he was a manager at a Five Guys Burgers and Fries or something. Like, it just did not look like an NFL player. No athleticism. The team is now 0-8-1, so they no longer are going to lose every season. At least they're going to have a tie on their record. But just so, I mean, it's just pathetic. They're not a sports team. I don't know. They're still dressed up in their Halloween costumes or something, because they're pretending to be an NFL team and they're not. So I mean, I'm down catastrophic about the Lions, and I have been for my entire life. So nothing else is really nothing else is new. Just more continued pain, and I don't know if it will ever end in my lifetime.
I mean, maybe if you live 100 more years, they might have a winning season. It might take that
Perhaps.
long, but yeah, the Lions, obviously, like I've said, I don't know if I've actually said it on the podcast or not. I know Kyle and I've talked about it, but I follow them somewhat closely because my sister's a pretty big Lions fan, so she's also been down bad for my entire life. She's a little older than me, but she's never seen the Lions be good either. But I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know that I have too much of a down bad sports moment of the week is the Colts got a pretty ugly win against the Jags. It was probably a lot closer than it should have been, but they grinded it out. Division games, the Jags and Colts are in the same division, and those games always tend to be tougher when two teams are in the same division. They play each other 2 times a year every year, so they typically tend to have more like kind of ugly, grinded out games, and that's what happened this week. But I guess if I had to pick one, the Bucks are still kind of on their slide, still aren't healthy. I have about a panic level of 0 still on them because, I mean, once they get healthy, they're still going to be the best team in the East. I mean, we've got Kyrie Irving who can't even play in games over here on the Nets who are supposed to beat us. So I'm not really worried about the Bucks at all. They just got to get healthy. I mean, our starting center, Brook Lopez, is out with a back injury. We've got Chris Middleton who has COVID currently, can't play. Those are two of our best players. Our other best player, Drew Holiday, just came off an ankle injury. Giannis has been sitting with an ankle injury. Like nobody on the team's playing. But I'm not really that concerned. They're going to be just fine. They'll find themselves back in another deep playoff run. But I think coming back next week after the Colts play the Bills this weekend, I might have another down bad sports moment coming in.
How's my boy Grayson Allen doing?
He is balling out this year.
Oh my god, I love him so much.
I mean, if you know anything about the state of Wisconsin, not too many people are fans of him here. Got a lot of big Badger fans, and he kind of torched the Badgers and our one chance to win a basketball national championship.
Is he winning the hearts of Wisconsinites over?
I will say he's winning the hearts of the younger fans. I'll say I think the old heads and the boomers are kind of still like he's a dirty player. He trips people. Like my uncle's a big basketball guy, also kind of a big Carolina guy, so he's not a Duke fan. And same with my dad. He's kind of like a big old school basketball guy, and all the older people are kind of like, yeah, he's a dirty player. They don't like him still, but like, I think he's winning the hearts of the younger fans because I mean he's hitting all of his threes. He just the other night on national TV against the Celtics, he hit a step back in a guy's face to send the game to overtime for 3. He's been starting in place of Dante DiVincenzo, who's out with an injury. He's been balling out. He's playing really well. Just signed an extension with the Bucks too.
Nice.
He's been balling out though. He's impressed me a lot. But you got anything else to say? Otherwise, I can wrap it up.
No, I think down bad sports moment. I'm yeah.
All right,
always a high point of.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least it's a consistent thing for the viewers. They know they get to tune in every week and hear you just be sad about the Lions because they just almost never win. It's almost a guarantee. They're going to lose every weekend. But I think that's it. Well, maybe Kyle mutes out his mic and goes to cry a little bit thinking about the Lions. I can wrap it up here. That's going to do it for this one. Obviously, like we always say, if you guys are watching on YouTube, this episode went a lot longer than we honestly thought, but that's how it always happens. We get too passionate about what we're talking about and we ramble on. But I think it was another good episode. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, listening on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Obviously, the last video was kind of one of the peaks of our podcast performance. Tons of views, tons of people listening, tons of people interacting with the video. So we really appreciate that. And then if you're listening on the audio platforms, that was also one of our best audio performing podcasts in the few episodes we've had on Spotify and those platforms. So if you're on there, drop a follow. Come on, check us out on YouTube. Sometimes during the year, we're going to post other things that aren't going to get uploaded on the audio platforms, other shorter videos reacting to news that maybe is only 5 minutes long or something. So come check out the YouTube channel if you're on there. Kyle and I's Twitters, the Twitter for the podcast channel, and then Kyle's are going to be in the description as well. Come check it out on YouTube. But that's going to do it for this one. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Another fun episode. And we're excited to bring you some more. So we'll see you next week with another episode. Thanks for watching and have a great day, everyone. See you later.